We are jumping straight into one of history's most, well, dramatic, true life stories. The incredibly complex and turbulent life of Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots.
It really is. A story that starts, astonishingly, with a crown at just 6 days old and ends, tragically, on an executioner's block 44 years later.
And running through it all, that intense, often deadly rivalry with her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I of England. The ultimate cost, really, of a disputed crown.
Absolutely. Her life kind of falls into three main acts, doesn't it? First, the upbringing as essentially a French queen, then her return as the Scottish monarch navigating impossible religious divides.
And finally, the long, long years as an English prisoner.
Exactly. Each phase marked by just extreme political and religious storms.
So our aim here is to pull out the most crucial moments, maybe some surprising details from this chronology, to really understand the pressures she was under.
Let's do it, because understanding why it all unfolded the way it did is key.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. December 1542. Mary becomes queen literally days after her birth because her father, James V, dies. There's that famous, rather bleak quote attributed to him.
It came with a lass, and it will gang with a lass.
Yes.
Meaning, the crown came to the Stuarts through a woman, Marjorie Bruce, and he feared it would be lost through his daughter Mary, a reflection of the precariousness of it all.
And the political maneuvering started almost instantly, didn't it?
Oh, immediately. The regency was initially under the Protestant Earl of Arran, and England's Henry VIII saw his chance. The Treaty of Greenwich in 1543 was his attempt to secure Mary for his son, Edward.
A sort of dynastic merger.
Precisely. But the Scottish Parliament rejected it, which led Henry to unleash what's grimly known as the Rough Wooing.
It's unpleasant.
It was brutal military campaigns trying to force the marriage. This pushed Scotland further into the arms of France for protection.
Which is why Mary, at only 5 years old, was shipped off to the French court. She spent her crucial formative years there until she was 18.
Right, and she received a truly remarkable education. Fluent in, 6 languages? French, Latin, Spanish, Italian, Greek, and Scots. And quite tall for the era, too, apparently around 5 feet 11 inches.
Impressive. But the real political game changer came in 1558.
Yes. She married the Dauphin, Francis, heir to the French throne. So she became queen consort of France for a short time. But crucially, she also signed secret agreements.
Secret agreements, what did they entail?
Basically, bequeathing Scotland and her claim to the English throne to the French crown if she died without children. The French court started quartering Mary's coat of arms with the royal arms of England.
Okay, for those of us not fluent in heraldry, what does quartering the arms actually signify?
It's a very public, very deliberate statement. You're essentially taking the official symbol of English sovereignty, Elizabeth's royal shield, and putting it onto Mary's shield. It visually declared Mary as the rightful Queen of England.
Wow, so no subtlety there.
None whatsoever. And remember, when Mary I of England died later that same year, 1558, many English Catholics did see Elizabeth as illegitimate because of Henry VIII's divorce. For them, Mary Stuart was the true Queen of England. This act solidified that claim in a very visual way.
So the conflict with Elizabeth was baked in from that moment on.
Absolutely unavoidable.
But Mary's time as French queen was cut short. Francis II died young in late 1560.
Yes, leaving Mary a widow at just 18. She famously wore white mourning clothes, which earned her the name Lorraine Blanche, the White Queen.
A striking image. And then in August 1561, she returns to Scotland, a place she barely knew and one that had undergone a seismic shift.
A massive shift. The Protestant Reformation had taken hold. So here she was, a devout Catholic queen returning to rule a kingdom now largely dominated by powerful Protestant lords.
That sounds like an impossible situation.
It was incredibly difficult. But to her credit, initially, she governed quite pragmatically. She didn't try to overturn the Protestant settlement right away. She even kept key Protestant advisors like her own illegitimate half-brother James Stuart, the Earl of Moray.
But that pragmatism had its limits, especially when faced with someone like John Knox.
Ah, John Knox, yes. The fiery leader of the Scottish Reformation. He saw Mary's Catholicism, her very presence, as a threat. He openly challenged her authority right from the pulpit.
He didn't just disagree on policy, did he? He attacked her personally.
Oh, absolutely. He condemned her for hearing Mass, which was her private religious practice,
Yeah.
but also for things like dancing, her elaborate French dresses. He basically questioned whether subjects even had a duty to obey a Catholic ruler. It was a fundamental clash of worldviews. her Renaissance court culture versus his stern Calvinism.
While battling Knox internally, she's also trying to secure her position externally, specifically with Elizabeth.
Yes, she repeatedly tried to get Elizabeth to formally name her as heir presumptive to the English throne.
Which seems like it might have calmed things down. Why wouldn't Elizabeth do it?
Because Elizabeth was, well, a master politician. She knew that officially naming Mary as her successor would make Mary an even bigger magnet for Catholic plots against Elizabeth. It would basically paint a target on Elizabeth's back.
So refusing kept Mary in a state of uncertainty and arguably kept Elizabeth safer.
That was certainly the calculation. It kept the pressure on Mary and off Elizabeth to some extent.
That pressure cooker really seemed to intensify with Mary's second marriage, though, to Lord Darnley in 1565.
Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, her half-cousin, handsome, charming initially, but fatally arrogant. And crucially, he also had a claim, albeit weaker, to the English throne through his mother.
Which infuriated Elizabeth.
Absolutely. Darnley was technically an English subject, marrying a foreign queen with a claim to her throne without her permission. Elizabeth saw it as a direct challenge.
And the marriage itself, it soured very quickly.
Almost immediately. Darnley was ambitious. He wasn't content being just the queen's husband. He demanded the crown matrimonial.
The crown matrimonial, we need to unpack that. What exactly did that mean practically?
It was huge. It would have made him co-sovereign with Mary, not just king consort, but king with equal power. And crucially, if Mary died first, he would remain king of Scotland for life.
So it wasn't just a title, it was a bid for ultimate power, potentially bypassing any children they might have.
Precisely. It would secure the throne for him. Mary, quite rightly, refused. And that refusal, combined with his jealousy and arrogance, poisoned everything.
Leading to one of the most shocking incidents, the murder of David Rizzio.
March 1566. Just horrific. Darnley, conspiring with a group of Protestant lords who disliked Rizzio's influence, burst into Mary's private supper chambers at Holyrood Palace.
And they murdered Rizzio, her Italian secretary.
Stabbed him repeatedly, dragged him out right in front of Mary, who was 6 months pregnant at the time. It was an act of unbelievable brutality, clearly designed to terrorize and control the queen.
Unimaginable. She survived, gave birth to their son, James.
Later, James VI of Scotland and James I of England, yes. But the relationship with Darnley was utterly destroyed. Trust was impossible after that.
Which brings us to Darnley's own end less than a year later, February 1567, the Kirk of Field incident.
One of history's great murder mysteries, in a way. The house where Darnley was staying blew up in a massive explosion.
But his body wasn't found in the rubble.
No. His body and that of his valet were found nearby in the garden. Strangely, with no marks from the explosion. The suggestion was they'd been smothered after escaping the house, or possibly killed beforehand.
So the explosion might have been a cover-up?
It certainly looked like a staged event, or at least an assassination attempt that went strangely awry in its execution. Suspicion immediately fell on James Hepburn, the Earl of Bothwell, a powerful, ambitious nobleman.
And then Mary makes the move that arguably cost her everything.
Her third marriage. In May 1567, just 3 months after Darnley's murder, she marries Bothwell.
Bothwell, who had just stood trial for Darnley's murder and been acquitted, though many considered it a sham trial.
Exactly. Marrying the prime suspect so soon. It was politically catastrophic. It alienated almost everyone. Catholics, Protestants, the Scottish nobility. It looked like collusion.
Whether it was or not, the perception destroyed her.
Completely. It led directly to an uprising by the Confederate lords. Mary raised an army, but she was defeated at Carberry Hill without much of a fight. Her own troops were deserting.
And then imprisonment.
Yes, she was taken to Loch Leven Castle, isolated on an island. While there, she suffered a miscarriage, likely of twins conceived with Bothwell. And then, in July 1567, she was forced to abdicate the Scottish throne.
In favor of her son, the infant James.
Yes, James VI, who was just 1 year old. Her half-brother, the Earl of Moray, became regent.
And it's during this period, amidst the investigations into Darnley's murder, that the infamous casket letters surface.
Ah, the casket letters, supposedly found in a small, ornate silver casket belonging to Bothwell. They included 8 letters, some sonnets, and 2 marriage contracts, allegedly from Mary to Bothwell.
And they were presented as proof.
As absolute proof that Mary had conspired with Bothwell to murder Darnley, that she was complicit, driven by passion.
But Mary always maintained they were forgeries.
Vehemently. She argued her handwriting was known to be easily imitated. and historians have debated them ever since. The originals conveniently disappeared in 1584.
So we only have copies or copies of translations.
Exactly, which makes definitive analysis impossible. Some scholars point to stylistic inconsistencies, like poor French grammar in the sonnets, arguing Mary, raised at the French court, wouldn't make such errors.
Which could suggest forgery.
Or perhaps rushed writing, or maybe a mix of genuine and forged material, or even heavily altered documents. If enemies were faking them, why not make the French perfect? It's a puzzle with missing pieces. We simply cannot know for sure.
Regardless of the letter's authenticity, Mary didn't stay in prison for long.
No, she made a dramatic escape from Loch Leven in May 1568, rallied forces again.
But faced defeat quickly.
Yes, at the Battle of Langside just days later, her forces were routed. And then she made perhaps the single most fateful decision of her life.
Fleeing south.
Fleeing south, across the Solway Firth, into England, seeking refuge and help from her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I.
A desperate gamble.
A catastrophic one, as it turned out. She thought Elizabeth, a fellow queen, would help restore her. Instead, she delivered herself into Elizabeth's hands.
Trading one prison for another, essentially.
And a much longer one. Elizabeth couldn't let her go. Mary was too dangerous a symbol for English Catholics, but she couldn't execute her immediately either. So began nearly 19 years of captivity in England.
18 and a half years. It wasn't exactly a dungeon, though, was it? She was moved between various castles and manor houses.
Yes, under the custody of figures like the Earl of Shrewsbury and his formidable wife, Bess of Hardwicke, places like Tutbury Castle, Chatsworth House. It was more like house arrest, albeit under strict guard. We hear she needed 30 carts to move her belongings between locations.
30 carts. That suggests a certain standard of living, even in captivity.
Indeed. And she occupied her time. She was known for her intricate embroidery, stitching her famous motto, "En ma fin est mon commencement," in my end is my beginning. A statement of defiance, perhaps, or faith.
A powerful sentiment. But despite the embroidery and relative comfort, she remained the focal point for plots against Elizabeth, didn't she?
Constantly. She was the Catholic alternative. There was the Ridolfi plot, the Throckmorton plot. Numerous conspiracies aimed at deposing Elizabeth, often with Spanish backing, and placing Mary on the throne.
How did Elizabeth's government finally, definitively, link Mary to a plot in a way that sealed her fate?
Through the meticulous work of Elizabeth's spy master, Sir Francis Walsingham. He was ruthless and efficient. He essentially engineered the Babington plot.
Engineered it? How so?
He allowed conspirators, led by Anthony Babington, to believe they had a secure channel to communicate with Mary via coded messages smuggled in beer barrels. But Walsingham's agents were intercepting, deciphering, and sometimes even resealing the letters.
So he was reading her mail, basically.
He was reading everything. And he waited until he had letters where Mary explicitly sanctioned the plot, which included the assassination of Elizabeth. That was the concrete evidence he needed. Treason.
Undeniable proof, which led to her trial.
October 1586 at Fotheringhay Castle. Mary defended herself vigorously. Her main argument was quite powerful. As a foreign anointed queen, she was not an English subject and therefore, legally, could not commit treason against the English crown.
A compelling legal point.
Logically sound, perhaps, but politically impossible for the court to accept. She was found guilty. Only one commissioner dissented.
Elizabeth must have been in an incredibly difficult position to execute another anointed monarch.
It was a terrible dilemma. The regicide precedent, killing a queen, was dangerous. It could imply that any monarch could be overthrown and killed. She hesitated for months. But the political pressure, the fear of further plots, was immense.
She eventually signed the death warrant.
She did. Though there's some historical debate about whether she truly intended it to be carried out immediately. Some suggest the Privy Council acted swiftly, perhaps even against her immediate wishes, to ensure it was done, giving Elizabeth a degree of deniability later.
Plausible deniability. A classic political move.
Indeed. The execution itself, on February 8, 1587, was full of grim drama.
Tell us about those final moments.
The Great Hall at Fotheringhay was draped in black. Mary arrived with composure. As she prepared, she removed her black outer gown to reveal a petticoat and bodice of deep crimson or brownish red underneath.
Crimson, the liturgical color of Catholic martyrdom. A final statement.
It's absolutely deliberate. Her final words were in Latin. In manus tuas, Domine, commendo spiritum meum. Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit.
And the execution itself.
It was horribly botched. The first axe blow missed her neck, striking the back of her head. The second blow severed the neck, but not completely. It took a third blow, apparently, to finish the job. And then the final shock. When the executioner held the head aloft by the hair, Her famous auburn locks came away in his hand. It was a wig. Underneath, her own hair was very short and gray, a moment of stark reality after all the regal presentation.
What a final image. Her courage, the botched execution, the wig, it all contributed to this enduring image of Mary as a tragic figure, didn't it?
Immensely, it cemented her place in popular imagination as this romantic, victimized queen. Despite the unresolved questions, like her actual level of complicity in Darnley's murder, the evidence just isn't conclusive either way.
So the historical debate continues. Was she fundamentally a victim of circumstance, a Catholic queen unable to navigate the treacherous Protestant politics of Scotland and England? Or was she more naive, perhaps, easily manipulated by ambitious men like Darnley and Bothwell? Or was she an active player who simply made fatal miscalculations?
It's likely a complex mix of all those things. She certainly faced an incredibly hostile environment, but her own choices, particularly marriage to Bothwell, undeniably accelerated her downfall.
It leaves us with a challenging question, though, doesn't it? Thinking about the intense religious hatreds of the time, her undeniable position as the Catholic claimant to Elizabeth's throne.
Exactly. Here's something for you, the listener, to consider. Given those non-negotiable realities, the religious divide, the succession crisis, was Mary's life almost destined for a tragic end the moment she set foot back in Scotland in 1561, regardless of her personal actions or innocence in the plots that swirled around her? Was tragedy simply unavoidable?